Hey everyone, and welcome to the Human Design Podcast with me, your host, Emma Dunwoody. I'm a qualified master coach and human behaviour specialist, as well as being a qualified human design coach. And I work with clients every single day to answer the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And what is my purpose? I also assist them to transition from the person they think they should be to the person they really are on the inside. I teach people how to actually live their design instead of just knowing it. And if this is something that you want to do too, well, stay tuned or reach out for private coaching or Human Design Unpacks, where I show you exactly how to live your design. Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Human Design Podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I want to share something really amazing with you. And it's actually one of our new Millions of Millionaires sponsors. So to introduce this body graph chart software that we've been using that's been mind-blowing. So I want to welcome the amazing Taylor Jyson, who is my incredible operations manager. Welcome along, Taylor.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. This is actually something that we implemented when?
April.
Yeah.
And this year.
We were just trialing it out because they'd reached out to us in regards to sponsoring the podcast or something like that, wasn't it? And so it kind of wasn't even on our radar, and we tried it out and we had such low expectations. And then what happened?
Well, I remember sending you a message going, Emma, why are we not using this? Because I was mind blown. You know, we get a lot of requests for stuff like that. And, you know, there's new softwares all the time. And I clicked on it, like you said, with very low expectations. And I started looking through what they can do. And I got so excited. You know, the MG in me was like, oh my God, we have to use this. And I saw the potential of it. And it has delivered more than expected. It's really awesome.
Amazing. Now, before we get into the actual numbers, because I know numbers with Taylor is a thing in our business. She loves to share all the numbers. Let's just tell the listeners exactly who it's for and what it is.
Yeah, so it's a great tool for anyone who uses human design in their business. So if you're a human design reader, a human design coach, or just someone who uses human design in your business, if you incorporate it into whatever you do, it's a way for you to embed an actual human design chart tool into your website. So, you know, if you want someone to get their human design chart, you probably send them to an outside platform somewhere, go to this website, put in your details and get your chart, whatever that platform might be. There's a couple big ones. And what's cool about this is that it allows you to put that tool on your own website and it's yours. So when someone comes and, puts their information into your website, they get their chart, and then you can hook it up to your email list, to your newsletter. You can have it linked to your own content. You can customize the reports afterwards that they get, so it's your own descriptions of what, this type is or this profile. So that's kind of what it is.
Oh my God, I love it. And it's so cool because I actually remember when Jenna Zoe, because it must be the same software that Jenna Zoe used and before anyone else. Yeah, right. And I was always like, wow, her chart looks so beautiful and it's on her website. That's so cool. So yeah, when we started using it, I was like, this is beautiful. I'm really excited that we can do it. But let's talk hard numbers. Like we have had some serious success with this, just adding this to our business. So tell everyone a little bit about the growth that we've experienced through using this.
Yeah. So since implementing it into our website in April, there have been over 4,000 people that have downloaded their chart through the website. And that's unique. That's not, someone who does it twice, because a lot of people, they'll go back because they won't download the PDF or something, or they lost it or misplaced it. That's unique chart downloads. So it's even more for people doing it twice. And it's been really amazing. It's more than tripled the size of the email list. And, you can set up sequences afterwards for people to, give them more information and keep everything in-house.
Yeah. And because one of the really big things for us is obviously human design made simple. So it gives us the opportunity to give our way of teaching human design directly to the people who want it. And I love that. I love that every single person that wants to get their chart, that downloads it, we can then support them on their journey straight away, which is of course what you set up, because you're amazing, to make sure that not only do they get their chart, but they also get this support, free content support that helps them as they're new to human design and on their journey. So beautiful. So how do people access this? What's it called? And I know that there's a benefit for listeners of the podcast.
Yes. So you can go to the link in the show notes, or you can go to bodygraphchart.com. And they have been kind enough to give the listeners of the Human Design Podcast a 50% off discount for 12 months, which is huge because it's already inexpensive to begin with. And then the 50% discount is going to put it at $25 a month. That's in US dollars. So wherever you are in the world, it'll be, a little bit different, but 50% off for 12 months. And the code is Human Design Podcast. And we'll put that in the show notes too for everyone. And one of the other things I want to say that's really cool about this chart tool is that it's 100% customizable, and it actually gives Chiron and the 4 arrows, which is what a lot of chart tools don't do that. So that's one thing that a lot of people are drawn to when they go to get our chart from our website is, I can get the arrows because of it, or my Chiron gates.
I love that. It's so cool. So check out the show notes, people. Get on it, because really it is such a powerful, and as Taylor says, inexpensive tool. Like, it paid for itself in the first 2 days, I seem to remember, or first day, I seem to remember. So it's so valuable, and it gives you the opportunity to really build your brand and your communication with your clients. So thank you. Go check it out. Hey, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. And today I have a returning guest, one of my all-time favorites, the beautiful, amazing, incredible Elizabeth Ralph. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. I told you, whenever I get to hang out with you, it's just, I'm like, okay, tell me where to show up.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And today, I was just saying, because of course I was looking at her chart. So I want to just remind everyone, so you can play along at home. Elizabeth is a 4/6 emotional manifesting generator. And I was just looking at, your chart again, and just saying before I press record, but I think it's just really powerful to say here as well, is that Elizabeth has nearly all the manifestor channels. She's got 2 full channels and 1 hanging gate. So just missing the 36. And like, so powerful, single definition. Like, this is an energy that I just said to her. It's like this energy of like, get the fuck out of my way. I'm making an impact. I am, playing a big game. Yet it comes in this package that is so, like, your energy is so grounded and loving and supportive, and even the way you speak, like, and, my friends, the people that know you and that have worked with you, we actually say, like, what is it with her energy? It's like, I just want to be in your aura. You're so calm and chilled and wise. And it's that beautiful balance of having that so much power in a chart, yet knowing that you don't have to present it in a way that is like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's that just the calm and, I don't know, groundedness and the gentleness of how that energy comes into the world, I think is so beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. God, I appreciate that so much, especially coming from you. You're just like a beacon. Oh my God, talk about a powerhouse. Every time I say your name, whether it's like to you or someone else, I just smile. I'm like, oh my God, you gotta meet Emma. It's like,
I love that.
A magnetism for sure that you carry. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
thank you so much. Well, I'm glad that magnetism called you in, because fucking hell, my life has changed since meeting you. So yeah, because of that, what I really want to talk to you about today, and for our listeners, is I want to talk about investing. I want to talk about, you call yourself the spiritual investor. And I suppose that's why I got really drawn to you, because if I'm really honest, I've wanted to invest for a long time, but I felt like, the little girl that knows nothing and has no power in the big boys game. And now, after working with you for 6 months, I'm like, wow, I'm in the game. I'm making up my own rules. I'm doing it in alignment with my design. I'm trusting myself. So I really wanted to bring you on the podcast to just kind of help people to demystify investing, make it simple, and really help them to acknowledge potentially maybe the fear that they're experiencing. Like when you first started in investing, like, did you feel that fear? Did you feel like you had to be, all into the jargon and understand all the things? And how did you feel when you first got into investing? Because you went hardcore, didn't you? Like in energy investing or something.
Yeah, so I worked in investing. So, but no, I didn't feel that way. It's so funny because, like when you start a business, they're like, okay, understand your ideal client or tell them about your struggle with it. Like, honestly, like I'm really not. Like, I grew up with the language of investing. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. My mom was a financial advisor. And then I got into finance, and then I was an energy trader, traded commodities, oil, natural gas, all of that. And then I went through all the financial, education and stuff. And so, no, it wasn't something that I was afraid of, because it was never put into my mind that I should be afraid of it. So it's sort of like, you know, I guess I've just, and I think other people can kind of relate to this. Like there's probably been something in your life where, like, no one told you couldn't do it, so you just did it anyways. And it was almost like after the fact, you're like, oh, wait, I was supposed to feel differently about that, or, oh, I wasn't supposed to be in that room, or I wasn't supposed to go there. So that was a little bit with me. So as soon as I decided, it was my early 30s, and when I was working on the trading floor, which was a great job, but it was like living in the matrix. It was like 12 hours a day just watching numbers, very stressful. And so I thought, this is a great job, but I don't want to be in this forever. Well, what's the obvious solution? Buy my way out of it. So I just started using investing, and I started using real estate. I started using, like stocks, land, things like that. Really just actually using my creativity. And then investing was just sort of behind the scenes, which is what I love teaching people to do, because the energy behind the investment should really come from the individual. And that's kind of what you're talking about now. It's like, well, you can't get there if you're in the fear with it, right? So you can't actually pull that energy in. So I think for people who are in fear about investing, though, I think, that fear is not yours. That fear was given to you. And I think that's the first thing we have to understand, is that the fear about investing was conditioned into you. And I think, honestly, I think it's twofold. I think one, I think the previous generations, I think finance was definitely a black box, and they had to go to someone and ask advice. And it was almost like, behind the scenes kind of thing. So there was a separation with that. I think there was also, like, you have the whole generation of like, just save every dime kind of thing, and you sort of grow up a lot of that as well. And I think the third thing is, honestly, like, I think it has to do a lot with just different people have different opportunities, because you're not going to meet a wealthy person who doesn't invest. Yet if you ask someone who is struggling, or maybe paycheck to paycheck, is investing risky, you always get, oh yes, investing's so risky, I don't want to lose that money, right? So it's just, it's such an opposite way of thinking. But there's no accident that the wealthy people think one way and the poor people, you see what I'm saying? Like, that itself is the evidence that maybe the thinking is incorrect.
Yeah, I love that. And instantly makes me think, through the frame of human design, like one of the questions I get all the time from manifestors, projectors, and reflectors that don't have that sacral energy and don't have that consistent energy to be working per se, is like, well, how do I deal with that? And ever since working with you, I'm like, learn to invest, because that's going to give you consistent income. That's going to give you consistent wealth growth. Then you will be able to go with the ebbs and flows of your energy. And I think one of the things that was, really blown out for me is this understanding that I kind of thought like I had to have hundreds and thousands of dollars to invest, and I had to give it to someone, and then they would just take it off me and do what they wanted with it. And I was kind of like, yeah, I don't want that, because, as you discovered, I'm very values driven. It's important where I very much vote with my money, the products that I buy, like most of the things that I eat, that I wear, they're local, I buy them locally and support local businesses.
So that was something for me that was so fascinating working with you, was things like, oh, wow, we can invest our money, small portions of money, into land, into, finding, farming land, and even to the point that, I could go down this road of even looking for biodiverse farming land to invest in. And I didn't have to buy the whole freaking property. I could just invest small amounts of money for small pieces of land. So I love that it really started to wake me up to the fact that investing is really accessible for everybody. Like, how much money do you need? Like, how much money do you actually need to start investing?
Oh, it's so funny because, well, you're in the investing club. So it's like, I just put a stock in there 2 days ago that the share price is $12 and they pay a 9% dividend return. So it basically means you can buy a share for $12 and then you're going to get paid 9% is going to be returned to you on a quarterly basis, just deposited back into your account. So if you ask, like, how much does it take to start investing? Like, almost nothing. That's the thing. Like, I would say start with a few $100s and just start buying things. But really the best thing about like someone who's starting to invest is to almost not get hung up in the amount, because it's the amount that's sort of blocking you anyways, because the amount is then leading you to, oh my God, what if I lose this? Which is so funny because, like, even during like the whole pandemic thing and the stock market it dropped 34% was the lowest that it dropped. And it was back up within a month to not exactly where it was, but close. So let's say you had $1,000 invested. So we literally went through a pandemic, and the worst that you would have ever done is lost $350. That's not going to put you out on the streets, right? Not likely, right? So it's I think that people need to raise their standards with themselves and stop being so comfortable saying investing is risky, when in fact, investing is exactly what you just said. That's actually what's going to buy you out of having to rely on earned income. If you don't want your energy going somewhere that you're not aligned with, the number one thing that you should be doing is taking a portion of that and putting it to work for you. Like, hands down, that shouldn't even be an option.
Yeah, I love this, because what you really woke me up to as well was that, like, I can teach my kids this. And you even, I'm pretty sure it was you put me onto Sharesies, and then I heard it somewhere else. There's this app that, like, you can even buy a portion of a share. And I'm like, this is brilliant. I'm going to teach my kids that every week they get their pocket money, $10 of their pocket money is going to go into, obviously it has to be my account until they're 18, but, I can set up separate accounts for them so that they can start doing this, because then it's the same thing that releases them from being trapped in the whole corporate environment or the job thing. I mean, they're both manifesting generators, and as long as they're lit up and excited, they're going to make money. It's not going to be a big deal. However, if that money from their age is going straight into investments, they're never going to have to work a day in their life, starting at this stage, right?
Well, and that's right. And you're also teaching them that investing is not something that is just nice to have or nice to do, right? That's not it. Like, investing is like the coat for winter, right? It's like, it's something that should be like literally in your standards, like should be mandatory. Because relying on the economy, relying on someone to buy a product, relying on all of these things, we need to say freaking no to that. And that's what it takes, Emma, is it takes us actually changing our standards, because our standards create our circumstances in our worlds, right?
Absolutely. It's so funny. I have had a conversation around standards and values with just about every single person I've spoken to in the last 3 days. So I feel like this is a really important message that the universe wants me and all of you guys to hear, that this is where it begins, like in exactly what you were saying, Elizabeth. It's a belief system that you don't have enough money to do that. We can all, like, even if it's $50, that's something. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting with me, because you talk a lot about money neutrality, and one of the things that's been so cool is, like, going through this process and really getting to understand what money neutrality is. I realized that it's something that I've like I was already 80% there. So it was something that was really helpful for me to be able to articulate and to experience. Having said that, I taught it to and Justin is like doing like full on crypto trading. Like he sits there and his beads of sweat, like he's in this state. And I'm like, dude, I need to teach you about money neutrality. Like, let's talk about this, because
I love this. You haven't told me this. I love this.
Yeah. Because right now this ain't neutral. Like what's going on here? This ain't neutral. So, I introduced him to that. And I think and I know you spoke about it on the last podcast, but I want you to talk about it again, because money is energy. And I talk a lot about abundance. And when I talk about abundance and I'm teaching it in my classes or my masterclass, I just taught it in a masterclass, I think in many cases people want me to talk about money blocks. And I'm like, here's the thing. We want to go back even further than the money blocks. We really need to understand that it's an energy that we're feeling, that abundance isn't money. It's that we are fully connected to the abundance that we already have. And the abundance that, the more authentic we can be as a human being, the more money we're going to make, because the more abundance we're feeling, So I think that this is the piece that people miss completely, is that if you're focused on just the money, it's the vibration you have or the belief system you have about money that is dictating how much you do or don't have. Whereas if you take it that step back and go, wow, well, if I make my vessel, my aura, abundant, and I'm grateful for the air that I'm breathing and the water that I'm drinking and the laughs that I'm having, all this, free shit that is abundant all the time. And we're doing our human design work. So we're literally deconditioning and we're being more ourselves. Then money neutrality and money, that becomes so much easier. Am I right? Like, I'd love to hear what you have to say about all of that.
I love just hearing you talk about it, because I love like when we talk about a concept and then I love hearing it translate through someone else. It's just like quite fascinating to me. And I love how you're talking about how you're right. Like the money and the amount that's not even the frequency. That's not even the vibration, right? It's the abundance. And, you were talking about like the gratitude and all that being more of the frequency. But I think we just get caught up in that, and we get sort of sucked into the amount thing, which takes us away from what we're talking about, money neutrality. So when you first explained money neutrality to Justin, like, do you remember like anything that you said to him?
Well, ultimately I said, well, how do you feel? And he's like, oh, I feel stressed. I feel this. I feel like I'm going to lose. I'm like, that doesn't feel like it's neutral. That doesn't feel like, it doesn't matter. And he's like, oh yeah, but it does matter. And then he went into this, like, because of this and because of and I'm like, really? Do you know that's true? And he was like, no. And then we started talking about energy again, like it's a frequency. So whatever you're putting out, you're getting back. That's what you're attracting. So if you got coming from this place, then you're probably going to buy in to the one that's going to end up the way that you feel, as opposed to buying in for the fun of it. And I think that's one of the things in my journey and understanding money neutrality and investing. Like, it's almost like the moment I put the money into my investing account, it's play money. It's kind of the way I've set it up. Like, let's have some fun with this. And, the days that I look at it and it's gone down, I don't care, because immediately I have this belief that's like, oh, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So I'm like, whatever, it can only go up. And I think this is the other piece for me that was like, why do people don't say this? And that is that the stock market has always, investments, property, it always inevitably goes up. It's always going up. So you just have to be patient, right?
Well, yeah. And the thing is to your advantage. It's like, I always think of it like, okay, if you had like a block of cash, let's say you had like a stack of money you see on the movies, right? And then there was this train going by, right? And if you knew that all you had to do is just put that money on that train, and that when it came back, the whole cart was going to be yours and it was going to be stacked high full of money, everybody would do it. Yeah. Well, that's what we have access to. That's literally the stock market. That's compound interest. That's all of that. Why do we feel like we can't Like our whole freaking survival is based on that one stack of money. Well, do you know how many stacks of money we've made? Like if people go back in their lives and look at how much they've made to date, for most people, it's millions of dollars. So if you can do that and go, yeah, I could have invested 50,000, then why is that not a good idea now? Why does that argument not apply now? Right? I think that people have to kind of step into the self-responsibility of that.
Yeah, I agree.
But, you know, go ahead.
I was just going to say, sorry to interrupt, but I just had a thought. And one of the things, because you said, like, why would you not do it? And it just reminded me of the fear that I had at the beginning when I was working with you. And you kept asking me, and even on, you know, the group call, I was like, you know what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid that I don't know what to do. I don't know how to find a stock. I don't know what platform to go on. I don't know how to buy a stock. I don't know even what the language means. And I remember that was the biggest challenge for me, actually getting over that line of, shit, I really don't know, but I can find out and I can educate. Obviously, you know, I can educate myself through working with you, you know, other podcasts. I can do it in many ways, but that was the hardest part for me. It was like, I really don't know. And even though at that point I'd been told how, I was so attached to the, oh, but I really don't know fear. Is that something that happens to a lot of your clients? Do you hear that a lot? Like, and
99% of the people that come to me feel exactly that way. The number one thing is they say, I don't know how to invest.
Yeah. And it's so, go ahead.
You actually brought yourself back to neutrality in that. So because the I don't know how to invest is not neutral. Anytime we go into the how, we're no longer in neutrality. So you brought yourself back to neutral because what you did is you said, okay, I'm going to learn this. So what you did is you allowed yourself to be a beginner and you allowed yourself to not know. And that's the one thing people have a hard time doing with money, because we have been conditioned that you need to make money, you need to work hard, you need to know about money, you need to be responsible, you need to be all these things. It's like you have to do so much of our identity has been tied to money that most people are not willing to let go of that ego side of them, to even let themselves be the beginner, to get into that neutral place. And by the way, money neutrality doesn't mean you don't care about your money. Billionaires who are in money neutrality definitely care about the money, but they have an understanding that it has zero to do with the amount of money. It is the idea and the opportunity and the enjoyment of it that's going to actually create that money. So it's like, to them, it's like, it's a waste of time to think about the dollars, because the dollars are just going to come after, right? The dollars is like the end of the walk, not the beginning. But most people concentrate on the wrong side of the journey.
I love that. And as you're speaking, it just comes straight back. Like in human design, we talk about the gate 55, which is the gate of abundance. And it basically teaches us that abundance comes from freedom to be you, freedom to, you know, to live on your terms, like the highest expression of freedom. And I feel like that's exactly what you're talking about, is that, and this is why I think it's so back to front, because there's no freedom. There's absolutely no freaking freedom in living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, far out. We did it for a freaking long time. And again, it comes back to that feeling, right? It comes back to the feeling and how you feel about you, how you feel about your environment. The word that you used is, or the word that stood out for me was, you know, billionaires, they love the creativity. They love to instantly puts this picture in my mind that they're like, oh, I want to learn about that, or I want to see if I can grow this. And it's this from this place of creativity, which is another thing that the 55 teaches us. It's all about creativity. And I'm the same. Like, I think about the investing, and of course I'm investing so that not only I can, like, a big part of it for me is the, you know, generations, like into like the coming generations. I would love to be able, Justin and I've talked about, and I know a lot of people talk about this, but I want to definitely think about a way that we can set up some sort of way that we invest, that we can teach our kids and then they can teach their kids. And it's just this communal fund, if you like, that perpetually gets taken care of. And yeah, I think that that's what I was going to say. So one of the things that's one of the big drivers for me, but one of the other big drivers, or one of the things that I've really noticed, is how much fun it is. And the moment I'm enjoying it and I'm like, oh, what happens if I do this? And what happens if I do that? And, then all of a sudden I'm not worried about it, because again, I just fall back to that governing. It's a marathon. It's going to grow. It's inevitable. So I'm in that place with fun and play and lightness and curiosity. And then I am in money neutrality, because it's not about, like you say, the dollars. I think I've even separated myself from the dollars. Like that's money that I earned. It's almost like this is money. It's something completely different. And it's, I don't know, it's really cool. Is there anything you want to respond to on that?
Well, separating yourself, that's definitely one way to go about it. I think whatever feeling you need to put towards it to sort of get yourself into neutrality, and we each know that. I sort of see like any dollar that goes towards investing, like that dollar then has a job, and that's expanded money. So like I'm out here and I am, expanding my consciousness. And then my job is just to connect with other humans, whether it's someone I meet on the street or whether, it doesn't matter. It's like, how can we like be, we talk about the money condo, which is like broadening that opening, right? Just getting more open. That's what we're all trying to do here. So it's like that money that has come in through me, the money conduit, it's then like gone through me. So it's basically gone through me. And then the money that goes to invest is actually exiting. And that is money that is set to expand. So when I think of it that way, then I already know that money is 10-fold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold. So I don't need to think about that money anymore.
Oh, I love that. I don't have to think about that money anymore. That feels great. I love that as well. It reminds me of something that I don't remember where I read it. It was many, many, many years ago, and a practice that I still do today. And I'm pretty sure you actually talk about in the program. And that is like every single time I pay the team, I'm like, I am so excited because this money is going towards someone that I love, and their home or their life is going to grow because of it, or be better because of it. And, being that conduit, I think that's really, really important as well. Like feeling the difference between when we're a conduit, it's flow, right? And that's what we want to get into. We want to get into a flow state. But when we're in scarcity, we get stuck and we like turn the tap off almost. So yeah, I just love the way you talk about being a conduit for money.
Yeah. And you bring up something that's really important about the flow state of money. And so I do feel like sometimes I feel like there are some people out there who are like, well, yeah, I want to invest, but I have debt, or I don't have enough for, my business or something like that. Like, so again, like, it's not about the amount. It's kind of just what you said, Emma, which is just create that flow state, right? Forget about the amount. Because you remember when we set you up to start investing, like now looking back, like how, it was pretty easy. It was like, you can almost look back and go, well, God, there was nothing difficult about it, right?
It was so freaking easy. Like I literally, and being a good old line 3 over here, I had to try a few apps before I got to it, but I found the app that worked for me after trying a bunch. I put money in one, and there was a couple of hiccups, but we got it answered really quickly. Invested in the Australian stock market, realized that I couldn't invest in the US market. So then you helped me. We found another app. I joined that app too. Loved that app. Then decided to go into the Aussie market as well with that same app. And then I'm just in the process of following the bouncing ball of transferring directly from the one app to the other app. And I check the app that I am using. So I'm not using Sharesies yet. I'm going to set that up for my kids, but I'm using Stake, which is a New Zealand product. And it is so freaking easy. It's so freaking easy. You just pick what you want to watch, you stick it on a list, and then you put money in there and you buy it, and because I've started listening to your podcast and you talk about, within your community, you also help us with, what to buy. So I just go on my app and I buy it and boom. And I was listening to a podcast recently. There's an Australian podcast that's really good. And she was talking about CBA, which is Combank. So I just went and bought some Combank shares, and boom. And a lot of it, I feel like I'm just following my strategy and authority. Like it's kind of put in front of me. So yeah, it's easy.
And, just to reflect back to your listeners, something that like, I think they could learn from you, because, watching you go through this, one of the things that I noticed about you is once you decided that you were going to invest, you didn't get hung up. Like you didn't okay, so we had that first app that wasn't a match, right? But you were like, okay, let's just switch it now. In other words, like, you didn't get hung up in the process. That's one thing that was really, really amazing about you. Like, in other words, like start to finish, it was actually a quick process, even though you kind of had to do 3 or 4 things. So I'm just throwing that out there because I see a lot where people try one thing and they're like, oh yeah, see, it didn't work.
Yeah. And I mean, we talk a lot about this in my community and on the podcast, because that is literally, in fact, I have a story that, and I haven't told it for a while, so I'm going to tell it again. One of the stories that I tell in my community a lot is, that moment where you're signing up for the big program, you've finally got the courage, you're listening to your strategy and authority, it's all going really well, and you put your details in and the card goes, ba-bow. And then you tell yourself, oh, well, the universe doesn't want me to sign up. And I'm like, I am telling you as a line 3 who has done this a million times, that it's got nothing to do with the universe saying don't sign up, and everything to do with your own self-sabotage, that part of you that's still afraid to sign up. And for me, it's such a cue of, scarcity, that I'm actually in my shadow when that thing happens. And so many people tell themselves that when it doesn't work the first time, they're like, oh, well, see, it's not meant to be. I used to tell myself that for like 15 years, I reckon. And yeah, now over time, I've just learned like, no, my strategy and my authority, I'm definitely going in this direction, and getting to know my design better. Like I am someone who's all about trial and error and experimentation and having lots of experiences. So I know to keep moving through it. But I think that's such a great point to point out. Like, just because anything doesn't work the first time doesn't mean that it's not right. Doesn't mean that the universe doesn't want you to do it. It just means that you're still afraid of it.
No, yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you, here's the number one thing that really, really trips up, especially new investors, is they go out there and they start buying stocks, and then they start judging themselves based on the stock or the performance of the stock or what it's done or what it's not done and all of that. Yet, if you ask people, why are you buying this stock? Oh, so I can create wealth, so that I can not rely on earned income. Well, that's a plan, right? That's an overtime thing. So what people do is they say, oh yeah, I want to build long-term wealth. I want to be financially independent. But then they go out and they judge themselves based on short-term results. So I would encourage everyone listening to this to please don't do that to yourself, because that's the equivalent of going out there like really, really like you're running in a race and like someone grabs the back of your shirt and just keeps pulling you back. You're doing that to yourself. And so be kind to yourself, like have the grace with it. Let yourself be a beginner with money. That's how you step into your power with money, is you stop being so hard on yourself. You practice forgiveness with money.
Yeah, I love that. So what I want to ask you, I also want to ask you about, like, okay, we've talked a bit about shares, but what are the other ways? What are the other things that people can invest in? And also, I suppose from an ethical point of view or a values point of view, I know that's something that for me, I think the brief was absolutely nothing with Bill Gates, like that is a freaking no-go zone for me.
Yes.
So can we talk about the types of investments? And then I really want to talk to, because I love the way you pick your investments, or what to invest in, because you have all of this knowledge and experience. However, when it comes down to it, you very much trust the body. You trust the internal guidance system, the intuition. So can we start? And if I get derailed, can you come back to that last piece about how you choose the investment? But let's talk about the types of investments people can invest in that might be more accessible as well.
Yeah. So I think, I think the first thing is that people need to stop just thinking of the stock market as just like a blanket effect. Like, a car is not just a car. There's lots of different types of cars. So within the market itself, there are so many different types of investments. A lot of people start with just like index funds or ETFs, which is just a whole bunch of stocks thrown together. And that's something that you can do that's like really easy. And that if that's where you want to start, then that's where you want to start. I think as you go along, especially in an economy like we're in now, because we're in kind of an awkward time, there's some volatility in the market, which basically means it's going up and down, because the market is effectively just a global emotional decision that like represents where everyone is energetically. It's literally, if you think about it, it's just a conglomerate of all of these decisions, right? So we have to understand, and we have to kind of step back as like, almost like the 50,000 foot view and go, within the market, there's all these different types of sectors, right? So you're going to have commodities, you're going to have information technology, you'll have consumer discretionary, consumer staples, all of these things, right? So go towards definitely, so weaving in kind of you knew that there's certain areas that you were just not going to play in. Yours was more specific stocks, but you could say, well, I don't really want to support, like some people are like, I don't want to support the Walmarts of the world or whatever. So if you find yourself looking up an index fund or an ETF, and by the way, Google it, look it up, you can say, consumer staples, ETF or index fund, go and click on holdings and look in it and look at the companies. Remember I told you about this, Emma? I was like, make sure you look at the companies. It'll give you companies in there. If you don't like them, then to kind of move on to something else. So what you really want to do is you want to kind of be able to build a broad portfolio that's going to tap into various kinds of the market, because then it's more blended and you're actually lowering your risk if you do that. Like the portfolios that went down like a freaking rock, through water during these last couple of years have been ones that were all tech. Because what happens is when interest rates go up, the technology companies get hit hardest, because a lot of what you buy in that stock is like future potential. So the market says, oh, interest rates go up, that means it's going to cost more for those companies to operate and exist. Basically, it's called their cost of capital goes up. So what happens is those stocks went down. So you want something that's more broad. If you look at like energy has done great. The energy sector's up like over 50%. So if you had energy in a portfolio, then you would have been sort of weathered through that. So I would say definitely like look at the stock market in terms of pieces and know that there's a lot to dig into there. Now, the stock market is, you can go more growth stocks, which would be you kind of like hanging your hat on what's the future share price going to be. Or you can go more dividend stocks, or you can do a blend of both. A dividend stock is basically just like, it's a stock that the market is not expecting to grow at an astronomical rate. It could be kind of a steady Eddie kind of company, right? Maybe it's been in business for 30 years. Maybe they sell couches for a living. Who knows? In order to incentivize the market to own that stock, what they do is they give back part of their profit throughout the year, typically on a quarterly basis. So you buy a share of that stock, and then they're just going to deposit money into your account. So it's like effectively you're getting paid from the get-go. So you kind of want to have a blend of both of those in order to have, more of a fully diversified portfolio. So I would say that's probably a good place to start with stocks specifically.
I love it. And it's really actually so much simpler than you think. Like when you start getting into it, it really is so much simpler than you think. And even like just jumping on Elizabeth's podcast, which is the Spiritual Investor, like this is a great place to just start to understand the lingo and understand what's going on. But for me, even when we were looking at the Australian market, like just off the top of my head, I was kind of like, oh, well, maybe we should look at Telstra. Maybe we should look at Woolies. And it's really funny. Like they were just big Australian brands, and, ethically, values wise, am I really aligned to them? it was an area that it was definitely closer. Like Justin actually worked for Telstra for many, many years. And at that time, as an employee in the corporate division, they really looked after us as a family. And he got all his time off when Cooper was born. And, so I had that's why I had that sort of feeling about Telstra, even though, they've also done some not so great stuff. But and Woolies, Woolies, my brother-in-law works for Woolies. He's one of the senior leaders. Again, I don't think that like all their ethics are in line with my ethics, but it was also like, I feel like these are strong brands that I can make that compromise on. They both pay dividends. I'm also supporting Australian businesses. So I feel like there a lot of, as we go down opening this door or going down this rabbit hole, that we actually have more of a feel for it than we realize that we do. Because I mean, Apple was another one for me. I was like, Apple's a no-brainer. Again, like there's values wise, and this was something for me that I honestly had to, like I had very, very closed, very, very tight values and standards, and finding businesses that fell into that was hard at first. So that my compromises were like Apple and a couple of others. But I think that this is the cool thing was, and I was saying to you the other week, like it was so weird, like a local business, I'm pretty sure they started here in Byron, that they're now a national business that create vegan meals that like a delivery service. And it's a business that I've kind of followed because we've used it, not that we're vegan, but I just like, the more veggies, the better. Then all of a sudden they came on my radar, and it was a private investment that I could put, I think the minimum investment was like $500. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden I've got, look, all my values are here. And I felt really good about that investment. So what else? The other one I want you to talk about is land, because that was something that I thought, I always had a preconceived idea that if I'm going to buy land, it's either going to be a house for me to live in, a house for me to rent out, a house for me to put on Airbnb, something like that, which are all options. But I was like, well, you need to have 10, 20% deposit down. So that was like, old me was like that's, not necessarily the easy way to go about it. But one of the other things you introduced me to was you can actually buy farming land and like just small portions for smaller amounts of money. So can you just give us a simple overview of some of the other options maybe around property and land?
Yes, absolutely. But I want to reflect back to you something that I think is really key in what you said. And can you see, Emma, how like you investing, you were talking about the shares that you invest in, you're talking about the vegan, the private company, all that. Can you see how as a business owner, you're actually lowering your risk by not being solely dependent on 1 to 2 to 3 sources of income? Can you see how investing, like literally taking a portion of your money and then putting it into other companies, like it's so interesting when you look at it that way, then you almost can't ever, the argument about investing being risky doesn't even float, because the riskiest thing is one source of income. That's much
so much
than investing, right? And so I just wanted to say that because you gave such a great example of that. And I know that your listeners, they look up to you so much and they're always learning from you, and something that they can learn from you and what you're doing right now is something that can protect their families, is something that can create more freedom and energy in their life.
I love that. And I have to add to that, one of the things that I've noticed, because of course my big MG energy is already like 3 years ahead. But one of the things that I'm already noticing is the added creativity within the business, because the pressure's not on the business to make the money. And obviously my investments are certainly not replacing the business yet, like that's years down the track. But already having that option and that building on the side, I can already feel, and I'm already fostering that energy of like, wow, I can just play in my business. I can just, dive into my community and say like, what do you want? And what should we create? And what about the partnerships? And so that's another piece for me that I love about it, is that I don't need to be thinking about my family and taking care of my family. I don't need to be thinking about all of these things that my ego inevitably in my emotional low will go to.
Yeah.
I think that's what's so beautiful about it, because it also brings the creativity back to business. Because I think so many times in business, the reason why we don't succeed and why whatever the succession rate is so freaking low is because we are trying to, and this great metaphor that Elizabeth Gilbert talks about in Big Magic. So if you haven't read the book Big Magic, everyone go and freaking get it. And she talks about creativity and writing. And she says, you know, when you're writing a novel or you're writing a book or you're creating something and it's really new, I want you to think of it instead of as a book or as a business, I want you to think of it as a baby. And would you expect that baby to provide for you right now? Like, would you be on its case every second going, come on, you need to make money. You need to support us. Of course you wouldn't. And that's been something that's really helped me over the years. Like, oh, okay, it's still a baby. Stop trying to force it to do things it's not ready to do yet. And I feel like investing is a way that you can really help yourself nurture the baby that is the business, because it's taking the pressure off you, and therefore the business and the income in a way that just feels so much like, and it supports a big thing in my design. So I have 37 in my personality earth. So the shadow of feeling unsupported. So I feel like even investing has been really powerful to help me feel supported with money. And I had a moment where, you know, I put aside a pretty substantial amount of money into a different account to invest with. And I put a bunch of that into my investment account. I used a bunch of it for something else. And I had a moment that I was like, you know, my ego was like, oh my God, the bank account is low. And then I literally just sat myself down and talked myself off the cliff. How is it low when you've got X amount, like tens of thousands of dollars in investments? Oh, it's not low. In fact, it's safe. And that was where I came from. It's like, it's safe. Like, I can't just go, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to blow $5,000 on something. It's somewhere that it's safe and it's growing.
Better, right?
Oh my God. And it was that beautiful moment of like, shit, this stuff really works. I love it.
Oh my God. So great. I love that. Okay. So to answer about land, because I love that you're bringing this up. So just like we were talking about with the diversification within stocks, there's lots of different ways you can go within stocks. You can also create that diversification with different asset classes. So one would be real estate, and you could do long-term real estate. Of course, you can do short-term, all that, but specifically, you know, you're talking about land. So we had put together, and, you know, actually we could, if you want, we could send you some of these links if you wanted to even link some of this in the show notes here.
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Yeah. So it used to be where you had to go out and you had to, like, you know, it's either save the cash or you'd have to put a giant down payment on land because, you know, there's not a house sitting on it and all of that. Well, so there are platforms that are cropping up now where you can just put, like you say, $500, $1,000 or whatever, and you own a tiny portion of that. So it's like buying into it's kind of the equivalent of going in on a piece of land with like 50 people, you know, under one contract. So if you, in terms of like looking at land as an asset class, so here's how it would differ from the stock market. And here's why you would want to do that in addition to the stock market, because my whole thing is diversify as much as you possibly can, because the more you diversify, the more you can say F you to the economy or to whatever happens. Because usually when one asset class goes down, the other goes up, or the other remains stable. They're like bouncing balls that don't bounce the same, right?
Love that.
So with the stock market, what's happened recently all over the globe is inflation has gone up. So all the governments have increased interest rates, because by increasing interest rates, they're slowing the economy. So that train that we talked about, inflation is the train that's going too fast. Interest rates is basically putting the brakes on that train. And just understanding that relationship, you can understand so much about the economy. Like we said, this is not tough stuff, right? So basically, when you have these situations, then the asset classes perform differently. We just talked about how the stock market went down because the rates went up. Don't be afraid of that, because that's what was supposed to happen. Be more afraid if that didn't happen. Everybody knew market was going to go down because rates go up and it slows the train. Well, and land, what's unique about land is it's inflation protected, is what they call it, because as inflation goes up, well, what happens? The things that you grow on land, right? You charge more money for them. They get more expensive. As inflation goes up and then rates come down, there's less land available to actually purchase to grow things on, right? Because the buying has slowed, right? So land is like this really beautiful thing that over time, and it's actually one of the few asset classes that literally has like a straight linear curve, and it has grown over time at around 6%. Now, that didn't sound like a lot of money when the stock market was screaming like 3 years ago. Like I think in 2019, I think we got like 30% return or something on our money, right?
Wow.
And so guys loving the stock market, right? So then they're like, oh, land, whatever, that's old or whatever. Now everyone's back into land because the stock market's gone down. Well, think about it. If you'd been more diversified then, and you hadn't got caught up in the let me just jump in on the most popular thing, then you would have been so much better off now, right? So now is definitely the time to diversify and get into all of these different things, because to be able to have that steady growth rate, like I own physical land, so like blocks of land. And so what happens is it's funny, I just got a payment today. So I get a payment like the last month of the year. So what happens is it's farmland. And so they farm it all year long. They put whatever they want on it. They maintain it. They take care of it. And then at the end of the year, it's like it's under contract. And then when they take the crops out and they sell the crops, then they pay people. And that's just, it's very simple. Not anything to think about. So these platforms, which we'll put the links to, are basically a version of that, but owning like a slice of it. And you really don't have to do anything. You just they just give you a return.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. I love how simple it is. I love that there's just these really simple ways that we can put our money and any amount of money into places that it's going to grow. And I love the whole diversification piece as well. And, it was really great even going down, looking at property, because we were like, okay, well, let's look at investment property and all that sort of stuff. So we went down that road, and it was really empowering actually for Justin and I to go through the process and then have the conversation like, no, we don't think it's a good time to buy, right now, I don't think it's a great time for us because we still whatever, for whatever reason. But to actually know that we're saying it because we understood why we weren't going to buy right now, I think that in itself was just so powerful. And it was so easy. Like it wasn't as, scary and complicated as I used to think it was. It's actually really easy.
Yeah. I mean, the clarity, that's the thing that I would encourage everyone listening to this is like, if you think something's risky or scary or whatever, then just what Emma said, like go that next step further and just get the clarity on it and understand the pros and cons, because there's pros and cons to everything, obviously risk and all this. The land, I will say, if I were to bring up a con on the land, the liquidity on land is very, very low. So when you do invest in land, let's say you put that $500 or that $1,000 or whatever, don't think you're going to be getting that back anytime soon. That's more of a long-term commitment. You're in it for the long haul kind of thing. But I would actually suggest that when you buy stocks, you should have that same mentality. Even though you can sell a stock, anytime you want, I would say don't do that, because you want to actually give that stock, you want to give it like the time to grow. Yeah. So
I love that.
Real estate as well, as well. Like I would say move towards diversification with stocks, real estate, land. And then, we could also go into the whole fixed income thing too, because that's another asset class. So as rates are going up, what's happening is, and people are probably seeing this, your banks are offering you more for just, a cash account or money market accounts, what we call it here or whatever. And so that's also a good way to diversify, is to have a certain percentage that you want to put in there as well. Sometimes people call it, like, they prefer to it as like dry powder, especially if you don't have it, if you're not logged into a long term, like if it's just a few months, or maybe there's even no term with it, then you can move it around, let's say you want to buy more stocks or something like that. But, so lots of different things. Just make sure that you are investing in turning cash to cash generating assets. That's how you win the game. When you put cash into something that is not a cash generating asset, I'm not saying you shouldn't buy like a car or vacation or all of that. Of course, we need to do those things, but really step back and take a look at your life and go, okay, am I putting, of all the cash that I am spending above and beyond my cost of living or running the business or whatever, that top level of cash, is half of that going towards depreciating assets? Is 90% going towards depreciating assets? Because that's a wake-up call to a lot of people. You should have a giant portion of that going to cash generating assets.
I love that. So really understanding that you want to be putting your money in something that's growing your money as opposed to something that's diminishing your money. It's really that simple. So a car's diminishing it. Stuff is diminishing it. So anything that we can put our money into that grows it, that's where we want to be focused.
That's exactly right, because that's taking your power back, Emma. Yeah. And, I'll just say this real quick, that like, honestly, I think, we look on social media and we see so many people who are just like, have all these lavish, lives and everything like that. And of course that feels good. Of course that's amazing and wonderful. But I just don't want people to get caught up in thinking that is wealth, because there's a difference in rich. Rich is like 4 cars in the driveway, but you owe payments on all of them.
Yeah.
Wealth is you own enough cash generating assets that you could literally sell your assets and pay for those cars outright.
Yeah. I love
that. One
that.
is holding your power and the other is giving your power away.
Oh my God, I think this is so important. And a podcast I was listening to this week said she's actually someone who has a lot of influencer clients. And she was saying on the podcast, she was like, don't think for a second that just because they look like they're having a flashy time in a flashy country, that they have all the cash to pay for it, because they don't. And I think that's, really important to understand. And I know for me, getting rid of debt has been such a huge part of my journey, but I don't even want to go into debt. Let's not talk about debt today. Before we finish up, what I do want to talk about is, like, you're the spiritual investor. Like, you've really brought to all of this financial and investing knowledge, you've actually brought the, consciousness to it, spirit to it. Can you talk a little bit of how you maybe integrate your intuition into investment, and how would you teach other people to start to do exactly that as well?
Yeah, well, you kind of tapped on it a little bit when you started talking about money neutrality. So the greatest opening to money is absolutely money neutrality. And neutrality is the space of God. Like neutrality, when we can move into that, then that's full power flow. And you've felt examples of this, like where, let's imagine you're sitting at a dinner table and someone walks in the room and they're angry. Like, in that moment, like they've said nothing, but you can feel that energy. You're not going to do business with them. You're likely not going to engage at the level that you would. You're likely not going to invite them into your world, right? So what's happened is, because they are on the outer edges of the emotional spectrum, they're not in neutrality, then what's happening is those opportunities have been shut down. So the more that we actually can step into the self-responsibility of getting clear with our money, like forgiving ourselves, like all of these things, investing, getting energetically behind why we're doing things, the more we can do that, then the more we're getting ourselves into neutrality. And then here's what happens. what happens is the opportunities that you never thought you would see suddenly start to come into your world. When you're in neutrality, you're able to operate from in my opinion, like one of the most important spiritual principles of all, which is to show up needing nothing and receive all.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And you've just given me a massive oh, fuck, that happens all the time in my life now. And it's just got off a call to do the same thing. And what I'm talking about is when I believe in an individual or a business, then I love it. And I'm going to share it with you guys. Like you guys have heard me talk about, my latest thing is the analemma. Oh my God, I love the analemma. And what has happened through that process, or, we put this on the website, we've got the opt-in for people to get their free chart. We love it because then we can actually give people not only their free chart, and we can get them into our community that way, but we can actually give them content that's completely designed for them. And we just love it, right? And we started talking about it, and they came to us and said, oh, well, we'll sponsor the podcast. Let's do an affiliate. Like, okay, cool. And this money just drops into my PayPal account. And my intention wasn't to make money as an affiliate. It was to tell people that this is really freaking cool. And then they came onto the, as a sponsor. And Taylor's always geeking out about it. She loves it. And that's exactly what you're talking about. And it's even, the gardener vegan thing, I was so I want to be investing in things that are really aligned to my values. And then that just literally, I got a text, and the texts that I usually get from them is, you've got to order by 4 p.m. today for next week's order. And this one was like, we're doing a next round of funding. Would you be interested? There's a webinar, join the link. And I was like, that is so freaking easy. And one of the things that I've seen in business and in life, but we've really started to be able, this is almost, it is repeatable now, is that easy things happen all the time when we are just trusting strategy and authority. When we're just going through this process of, all right, well, I'll just turn up, I'll just turn up. And we've just had the exact same thing happen again. We're talking to another podcast. It started as a podcast guest, but a product that I rave about all the time. And I'm not going to say any more because you guys are going to hear about it soon because it's so freaking cool. And talking to these people, and I'm like, oh my God, you're my people. You are my people. I want you to be a part of my community and support my community and these sort of things, because we're on that same journey to do business from the heart. They kept saying one of their governing principles is business as a spiritual practice. And I'm like, oh, it's just gold. So I love what you're saying. And I feel like, this is what we're all striving for. And we're trying too hard to get there, as opposed to just being on the journey, cleaning up the fear and the scarcity and the shadow when it comes along, and just having that greater faith in self and the universe, God, universe, source, whatever you call it. And then these opportunities start to flow, right?
They do. And that is when you get to really have a lot of fun with it and step into being the money conduit. Because I think partly what trips people up is that a lot of times people, they want the millions of dollars, but then deep down subconsciously, they don't feel worthy of it, or they feel like they're being greedy or something like that, right? So I think something for people to remember is that, we're not a money receiver, we're a money conduit. You're supposed to allow money to flow through you, and you've been given these gifts. And so in a way, it's your responsibility to continue to clean up your relationship with money so that more money can flow through you, so that you are honoring those gifts, and so that your connection is deepening and your value is deepening in terms of going out there and doing exactly what you're talking about, because that's a perfect example of over and over showing up in almost micro ways of, needing nothing, receive all. Because if we do that and we find ways, but we can't do that, Emma, if we're all hung up in our heads about, I need this certain amount. Because that's the thing, A lot of people are like, oh, they feel like they do attract abundance, but you can attract abundance and still be blocking money, because you're attracting abundance in the amount that you believe you can attract.
Yeah.
So but you have to actually get beyond that amount, and you can get beyond that amount if you're not needing that amount. Does that make sense?
100%. I love it. Oh my goodness. I could be talking to you all freaking day. But we're going to end it there. So thank you so much for being here with us again. And just enlightening people on the easy way to start investing. And of course, if you guys are interested, this has lit you up, you're excited, you're curious, you're a little bit scared, but also want to find out, where can people find you, Elizabeth?
The Spiritual Investor Podcast, that's definitely a great place to start. I definitely go to the edges of everything, talk about the future of money. We talk about investing. We talk about the energy of money, all that. So I think that's a great place to start. Instagram, always on there. So you can find me just at Elizabeth Ralph on there, or go to elizabethralph.com. And, you can see we've got a 5-day sequence that you can go through that's free, that I absolutely love, that'll get you started on investing. So we have a lot of tools for people, or you can join the Spiritual Investor Program if you really want to go deep with it, right? Like you did, Emma. Because sometimes people are like, you know what? I just want to go deep with it. I just want to, change my relationship with it. I'm just ready. I'm just there. So,
yeah. And that was definitely me. And, I haven't even consumed as much as I want to. So that's definitely on my Christmas list. So go check it out, everyone, because Elizabeth Ralph is amazing. And if you definitely want to improve your relationship with money, abundance, and wealth, please go check her out, because she's freaking awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here with us. And I look forward to having you on the next podcast. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone, for being here all the way to the end of the podcast. I hope you got lots of value out of it. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Could I please ask that you share this podcast with friends if you found it valuable? And also, bonus points, could you leave a review for me as well on Apple? It would be greatly appreciated. If at any point you would like to be on the podcast, or you've got questions that you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, by all means, get on my socials and DM me. Everything you need is there in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.